As one generation goes, one must continue on the philosophy. And that's exactly what's happening with the CX-9 and the CX-90. And exactly what is that big change that the CX-90 is going to continue on for the brand? Well, here's one thing. Platform is different, powertrains are different, and even the space is a little bit bigger. And that's what I wanted to show, the evolution for Mazda's continuation of the three-row SUV to the CX-9 to the CX-90. Real quick, I want to give a big shout out to Mazda of North Miami for providing me the vehicle I was able to show you guys today. These guys have a wide variety of vehicles ranging from the Miata all the way to the all-new Mazda CX-90. They also have some nice deals going on right now with the majority of their cars in inventory. So if you're looking for a nice, affordable luxury car, I would highly recommend you guys check out Mazda of North Miami. Boy, what a year it's been so far. With one SUV leaving and one SUV coming to the show and showing off everything that it has. It's sad to see the CX-9 go, but it's really nice to see a new CX-90 coming in, and it's very welcoming too. With the Kodo design still being there and still being updated to this day, it's actually a really nice evolution of what Mazda has done compared to when they started back in 2013. And platforms have also been significantly changed, and engines as well. And the interior quality has definitely improved. And this is something we're going to show you now.
Whew. All right, it's a little bit rainy today, so we're gonna kind of just have a bit of an understanding that you may hear a little bit of rain. However, sitting in the inside of the CX-90, comparing to the CX-9, this is, of course, a way nicer interior. You're going to see a lot of similar amenities, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to AC controls, when it comes to radio controls, even the placement of the shifter, you're going to notice that a lot of amenities here are similar. And one quick note too, I'm going to probably say this a couple times in the video, but I will say this now. The infotainment system is going to be similar if you get a 2022 and up CX-9. The CX-9 has this continuing to 2023, and there's only the 2024 CX-90 and up. However, for the CX-9, if you get a newer one, like between 22 and 23, you will have this infotainment system. So that's just a quick reminder. The CX-9 that is in this video has the older infotainment because it's a 2020 model. So that's just a quick heads up. Anyways, outside of talking from the infotainment, if you want to see more in-depth stuff about the infotainment system, you can go check it out in more of the thorough videos of the CX-9, CX-90. I have individual videos for those if you want to see it. This is more so of a quick comparison, so you guys can go back to back to see which one would you prefer more. So with the interior, this is, mind you, the Premium Plus. So you're going to have really nice amenities here. Seats feel absolutely comfortable, stupendously comfortable in here. The seating position feels better, in my opinion, with the CX-9 compared to the, I'm sorry, with the CX-90 compared to the 9. I'm going to get that confused a lot. Also, with the 90, you're going to have a full digital screen up right in the front. Feels very nice. The quality is really good. The animation is phenomenal in here. When I go into like a different mode per se, it has like a really cool animation and stuff. And the graphics are really good, actually. That's one thing I do have to say. The 90 does have a head-up display. The CX-9 has an older style head-up display where there's a little tiny screen that pops up out of the gauge cluster, and that's where you can kind of see your speedometer and stuff. It does look dated, and it does look a little bit crappy compared to this nice heads-up display. That one does not have it, but this one does. So that's more of a standard feature that the CX-90 does have. Amenities-wise, trims are very confusing with the CX-90, and I am a little bit slightly more thorough with that on my CX-90 video. But to kind of basically explain, you have 3 powertrains, and those 3 powertrains are going to be the plug-in hybrid model, the PHEV model, the turbo, which is a normal inline-six turbo, and then you have the Turbo S, which is a high output inline-six turbo. So, and each individual one has their trims. Of course, the Select, the Preferred, Premium, Premium Plus, Preferred Plus. It's a very confusing, and obviously each engine that you get has some unique features. For instance, the Turbo S, which is the fully loaded to the max model, you're going to have a lot more better amenities in here. For instance, you're going to have heated seats, heated steering wheel, cooled seats for both the front and rear. By the way, obviously there's no heated steering wheel for the rear, but there's going to be heated and cooled seats for the rear. That's a very nice luxurious feature. And also an exclusive feature for the Turbo S, you're gonna have electric power adjusting steering wheel, which is really nice to have as well. You're gonna also have a nice 360 camera for the higher trim levels. Obviously this one doesn't have it, excuse me, because it's not a Turbo S, and it's also, I don't think, the fully loaded one either. I know this one 100% is not the fully loaded one. And for the Turbo S, you do have exclusive like body colored stuff as well. That's another way to know that you're driving a Turbo S rather than like a normal turbo or the plug-in hybrid model per se. It has body colored stuff. And headliner is a black for the Turbo S, and that's exclusive for the Turbo S as well. So interior as well as the exterior looks nicer for the Turbo S, while the plug-in hybrid model and the normal turbo look like a standard SUV. So that's one way to tell that. So you can kind of compare that to like maybe the Signature per se, because the Signature has, and I'm talking about the Signature CX-9, has more nicer amenities in the inside as well as the outside, with of course the Nappa leather and also the nicer body exterior with more body colored stuff. And to top that off, you know, there was better features like cooled seats. That was an exclusive feature for the Signature. None of the other Mazda models had that. So that's why the Signature became that new up-level trim for Mazda until they decided to do the Select and all that confusing stuff. The CX-9, I'll explain it once I get inside there. The trim levels are a lot better to understand, and they're a lot more simple. That's one thing that I really miss about Mazda's trim levels, is that you have a better understanding of what you're getting, what options you have, and what you can get. The CX-90, there is a lot nicer stuff in here, but you have to be careful and you have to understand exactly what you're getting into. You have to understand that there's a difference between the Premium and the Premium Plus. You have to understand that there's a difference between the Turbo and the Turbo S, you know. So that's my only complaint that I do have with the CX-90, is that trim levels are way too confusing. That's the biggest complaint that I have about it. But outside of that, everything in here feels really nice and way more modern than the CX-9, and you will not complain about that. That's my little vent that I have, so I apologize that it's a little bit long. However, back seat room feels really good. I have great leg space in the back, and third row, not really the best. Headroom is better on the CX-90. However, the CX-9 doesn't have the best headroom when it comes to that on the third row. However, second row and everything like that, it's okay. It's something that a full-size adult can fit into, and it's not going to be a problem. And when it comes to trunk space, we'll get to that right now.
Trunk space hasn't drastically changed between the CX-9 and the CX-90, but you are able to kick underneath in the 90, and the trunk is able to actually pop up by itself. With the CX-9, you're not able to do that at all. All you have is just a little button that's right above the license plate, or you have a button that's in the inside of the trunk when you're able to bring it down. That's the only things you can get with the CX-9. So that is something new. Now, talking about space with the CX-90 first, you're going to actually have a new bump up of 14.9 cubic feet. With the third row down, that's going to bump it up to just about 40 cubic feet of trunk space, and with all the seats down, you're going to have a cavernous 74.2 cubic feet of space, and you're going to also have some spare tire kits right there in the bottom, so that's just there. And you also have a couple extra plugs on the CX-90 just in case if you want to charge anything or blend something. Now with the CX-9 on the other hand, here's where trunk space is a little bit different. Trunk space starting with the third row, you're going to have 14.4 cubic feet of space. With the third row down, that's going to bump it up to 38.2 cubic feet of space, and with all the seats down, it'll be 71.2 cubic feet of space. And you're also going to notice that you have a little bit of extra storage on the sides behind the third row. So that is the difference that you're going to see with the CX-9 and the CX-90. You'll see that there is a little bit of growth in there. Now let's get ready to talk about powertrains, because this is the big one that we really need to talk about. The vehicle that we're testing today is going to be the CX-90 plug-in hybrid. I know you guys have been wanting me to do this, so here you go. Now, when it comes to MPG wise, we don't really have exact numbers, but we are predicting between 24 to 26 miles a gallon on the city and more than 30 miles a gallon on the highway for the plug-in hybrid. That's also including 25 miles of EV range, so that's a plus. Now, with the CX-9, you're going to also have an MPG rating of 22 in the city and 28 on the highway, so you can see that there is a significant drop with that, but there's no EV anything like that. And when it comes to power, there is definitely a noticeable change when you're going from the hybrid to the turbo.
Right, now sitting in the inside of the CX-9, how does it feel? It feels really nice. This was a really nice evolution. Now Mazda has came out with back then for the CX-9, and I have got to be honest with you, it still feels really nice to this day. Obviously, compared to the CX-90, you're gonna see that it's a bit more dated and stuff. It's just how it is, you know. But when it comes down to just overall the feeling and everything like that, and just the materials and stuff, it's night and day. It's completely night and day. And to be really honest with you, I'm very happy that this car still feels nice to this day. Even after being pretty old now, this thing came out back in 2017, it still feels really nice in here. You know, there's some SUVs that are still out to this day that feel more dated than this. I mean, the new Pilot feels similar to this, and the Pilot just came out with that interior. And Mazda had this interior for years. You know, so I like the fact that Mazda has really advanced their interior quality and interior design overall. The CX-90, of course, is a better evolution of the CX-9's interior. You're gonna feel that it's a little bit bigger inside. You're gonna feel that it feels more premium inside. The screen is bigger. You have a full digital gauge now. You have really nice amenities down here in the center that feel almost identical. Just the design is different, and that is another thing that I really like. I'll explain that more when I actually sit inside the CX-90, but it's just something to kind of keep aware of. The amenities here feel identical, they just look different. And I like the fact that Mazda's done that. Now, when it comes to trim levels and understanding what a CX-9 has and what the CX-90 has, that's going to be virtually different. And I'm going to probably vent to that a little bit once I jump into CX-90 a little bit. So I'm not going to really talk about it here too much, but it's better to understand the trim levels and what you're getting in the CX-9 than the CX-90. There's too many options that the CX-90 has, and it's a little bit all over the place of how they sort it out. And that's the only thing that I really have to complain about. With the CX-9, it's better to understand what you're getting. You know, this is a Grand Touring. The Grand Touring comes with this and this and this. It comes with Bose audio system, really nice leather seats, black headliners, sunroof, all-wheel drive, everything that you need. That's it. You know, the Premium Plus packages are different in every single engine option that you get for the CX-90, and that's where it becomes confusing. So I'm not gonna vent that here, but that's just something to keep aware of. And also another thing to keep aware of, if you go for a 2020 and older CX-9, you're gonna have the older infotainment system, meaning you're also gonna have an older camera. You're not gonna really have as nice of amenities in here. The resolution in the camera on the CX-9, it's terrible compared to the CX-90, of course, but it's just something that you had to keep aware of. And for the 2022 and 2023 model CX-9, not the 90, there's a new infotainment system. It has the updated infotainment system from Mazda. So that's just something to keep aware of if that's what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something cheaper than the CX-90, but you want that infotainment system, you have to go for a newer year model CX-9. Just something to keep aware of. Outside of that, seating just feels good. I have a nice view around me. I see a little bit of the hood. The steering wheel, I kind of sometimes wish I could set a little bit slightly lower in here. The CX-9 seating position, I feel a lot better on that one than this one. I'm not saying that this one's terrible, but I wish that I have a little bit more of flexibility in terms of adjustment that the CX-90 has, and that's a solution that they fixed. So that's something that I am 100% going to support of what they did. All the controls here feel identical. You're still going to have your normal radio controls here, obviously with the over-the-air infotainment system. Wiring controls, it's at the same exact placement as always. And of course, you're gonna have the AC controls that are in the same exact place as always. So you're gonna kind of see just back to back of just how everything feels. Legroom in the CX-9 is good. On the second row, the third row it's okay. It's not the best. I have less headroom on the CX-9 than the CX-90, but I have better legroom, if that makes sense. So that's the only way that I could really virtually compare that with. So the CX-9 feels a little bit more comfortable in the third row to sit. The CX-90, in my opinion, just feels less comfortable, if that makes sense. I have more headroom in the CX-90 compared to the CX-9, but the third row is... The third row just feels less comfortable overall. That's more so preferred for smaller kids, and that's pretty much it. Let's jump into CX-90. Right right, now we're starting off with the CX-9. This is obviously the previous generation, I guess, if you want to consider, for Mazda's three-row SUVs. And this has been a pretty popular SUV, but it has nothing to be in terms of being successful compared to the CX-5 or anything like that. This is a little bit sold less. But Mazda's evolution with the CX-90 that has came out recently, that is going to be the big deal. So with the CX-9, how does this thing feel, given the fact of now it's, you know, discontinuing? Well, this thing feels still really good. Mazda's interior has really changed when the CX-9 came out back in 2017, I believe. And the signature trim also came out at that time frame as well. And that's when Mazda really showed out their image of being this more luxurious brand, rather than just being a cheap Japanese brand, like maybe per se like Toyota, where they, you know, build their vehicles in a more affordable, cheaper way. Of course, Mazda is trying to show their image as being more of a luxurious car. And they also have introduced the turbo Skyactiv engine in this thing. Now, the CX-90, of course, doesn't have the turbo 4-cylinder anymore. It actually has two brand new engines for the United States, and that I'll talk about once we jump into that thing. But this turbo was an evolution for Mazda because they were able to actually bring out more power like a V6, however still have some efficiency capabilities like a 4-cylinder. Of course, it also was a bit inefficient when it came down to using that turbo, and it was not the most efficient motor compared to some engines out there, but it was still pretty good, and it still had a lot of torque that not a lot of people complained about. It still has a 6-speed automatic. All CX-9s will still have the 6-speed automatic, no matter what trim you get, no matter if you get front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, does not matter what you get. You're going to have a 6-speed automatic no matter what, but it comes standard with the turbocharged 4-cylinder. And with all the trim levels, I've got to say the CX-9 is a little bit more simplistic when it comes to trim levels rather than the CX-90. There's a lot of trim levels and individual differences with the CX-90 rather than the CX-9 itself. For instance, you have, you know, for the CX-9 itself, you have the Sport, Touring. I don't even know if you have a Sport. I think it just starts off right away with the Touring, then the Grand Touring, and then you also have the Carbon Edition, which was more in the 22 models, and the 23s, of course. And then you have the Signature, which was the top dog, top of the line with a nice Napa leather in the inside. This one, of course, is the Grand Touring, and this is a 2020 model. And I will also say this as well. If you're looking into like a 23 Mazda CX-9, it is pretty much going to be the same in the inside and out. The only difference you're going to have is just an updated infotainment system and also Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, if that's something also that you're really paying attention to, which I don't blame you, to be honest with you, because it's very convenient. So that's another thing that you'll notice right away when you get into a CX-9 from like 22, 23, I believe even 2021. The screen is different. The infotainment and the screen are completely different. So that's just keep in mind of that. If you get something older, expect to have the older infotainment system, which is a little bit slower. It looks a little bit dated compared to the new infotainment system that the CX-90 has. So that's another thing to keep in mind of. The camera also is quite a bit older. The resolution is a little bit crappier. So another thing that you need to expect when it comes to that, but that's, of course, it's an older SUV, so that's something that you need to expect. This is an older technology that Mazda's had, and this is a completely different platform that they're using rather than the CX-90, which is a rear-wheel drive based system on that platform. This is a front-wheel drive based platform, so very different indeed. So space-wise and everything else in here, when it comes to creature comforts, all the amenities feel relatively similar to the CX-90. Once I jump in that thing, I'm going to notice that it's going to feel very similar, but there's going to be some key differences. Quality feels slightly cheaper in here rather than the CX-90, like I've said already. However, it still feels nice and premium out here. And when it comes to acceleration, I'll do a small one. You hear the turbo, and you also get a good amount of pull out of this thing, and that is a really good thing about these CX-9s. They have really good pull, and going on the highway feels phenomenal. So that's one thing I have to say. If you want to see a more extensive video of the CX-9, you can go check out my channel. I have a Carbon Edition CX-9 from 2023. You can go check that out, and I go in a lot more in depth with the CX-9. It's about 30 minutes long, just purely about the CX-9, and I talk a little bit too much in that video, but you can look at that and you can see a lot more details about the CX-9, even with the Carbon Edition, because that one has red seats. So as we're finishing the drive with this one, we're going to be jumping into CX-90, and I'll see how the difference feels. Obviously, it's going to drive a little bit different. It's going to feel very different. It's going to look a lot nicer. But the CX-9, honestly, if you're looking for a used Mazda, not per se a brand new one per se, or maybe the CX-90 maybe is a little bit too much, the CX-9, it's still a good option. You're not going to be disappointed sitting in here at all. You're gonna love the speakers in here. You're gonna like the driving position. I love the driving position in here. You're not gonna be disappointed at all whatsoever. Right now, sitting in the CX-90, this is very, very different. Like I'm saying, driving position feels way better in my opinion with this one. Given the fact that I'm already 6 feet tall, the driver position feels really good in this thing. I sit nice and low. I still see a little bit of the hood, but I still have a really good view for everything. I can still see the street really well. I don't have really serious blind spots or anything like that, and I feel a little bit more comfortable in here. And also, materials do feel relatively good. Now, here's one thing I will say. The CX-90 is a lot more complicated when it comes to noticing the trim levels rather than the CX-9. And it just goes for the amount of powertrain options you get. The CX-9 used to only have one powertrain option, and it was just a 4-cylinder turbo. You had the option of getting 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, of course. The CX-90, however, has 3 different engine options. And that goes for this particular one. This is the plug-in hybrid, which I know that you guys wanted me to review, so I'm reviewing this today. And also it has the normal inline 6 and the inline 6 high output voltage one. That one has a little bit more power than the normal 6-cylinder, and of course they have the plug-in hybrid. So there's no 4-cylinder turbo at all for this one, but the 6-cylinders, the inline 6, is turbo. So I guess it's kind of counts. And also keep in mind, this only comes all-wheel drive in the United States, but it's a rear-wheel drive bias platform. So that's another thing to just keep in mind with the CX-90. It is a rear-wheel drive bias platform, and that's what Mazda is starting to go to. It's more of a luxurious platform, I guess you could say, and that's what Mazda is really focusing on. And I've got to say, in terms of driving quality, it's really good. Obviously, you're not going to notice like a major difference when it comes to drivability when you're just driving normally, but when it... Right, now after fixing the issue on my phone, sorry, now we're driving in EV mode. Like I was talking about with the platform and stuff and how it was going to feel very different, this is also one of the biggest differences you're going to feel. I'm in currently EV mode because of the fact that the CX-90 is in plug-in hybrid. I had the privilege of going in EV mode, and I'll tell you this, because I've been in a Wrangler 4xe, because I used to work in the Chrysler shop. I've been in a couple plug-in hybrids from Ford and stuff, and this one is probably one of the weirdest plug-in hybrids I have yet driven. This is Mazda's first plug-in hybrid in the United States, and this is how they're executing it. With the CX-90, you will have between 25 to 26 miles of EV range that you can do, and on a full tank of gas with EV and also with the gas full tank of gas, you can hit about 500 miles in one full tank, which is pretty good for a CX-90 or for generally a 3-row SUV. It's pretty good. And how does the torque feel? Pretty good. I mean, this is just only with the gas motor and everything like that, so you're not gonna have like exaggerating torque like maybe in some of the EV modes. And what I do have to explain is that this EV is very, very different. Now, if you ever have the chance of driving one of these, you're gonna notice that you're gonna feel shifts, because this electric motor, it is between the engine and the transmission, but the way Mazda engineered this car was that it shifts gears, even in all electric mode, which I find that to be one of the weirdest things, because I've driven the 4xe before and it doesn't shift at all. It just sounds like a normal EV. This one does. And I want to just kind of show you something else cool once we have the chance of pulling over. However, it does shift gears even still. And when I get off of EV mode, it still drives like a normal car. Obviously, there's going to be sport and off-road mode as well. So if you want a sport type feeling, you still have that. And I will say, this car is pretty torquey in sports mode. I was actually surprised by that. It's a torque monster. That's basically to describe the PHEV model. This is a torque monster. Kind of feels a little bit like maybe, I guess, a diesel, but not really. While the high output inline 6 just feels a little faster. If that's the best way to say that. This feels like it has more pull, while the inline 6 feels like you're pulsating faster, but it doesn't push you in the back of the seat like this one does, at least in my opinion. However, in EV mode, it's just by itself and it's extremely, extremely quiet. You don't feel the engine at all. on EV mode. You feel it to be very smooth around the road. You feel it to be very quiet. But when you kind of accelerate a little bit, you feel a little bit of the shifts, and you can hear it. I don't know if you're able to hear it through my phone, obviously, but you actually can hear this electric motor shifting a little bit. And I'm gonna just pull over too, like I said, because I want you to hear this. This thing actually revs in EV mode, and that's one weird characteristic about this car. I don't know if all plug-in hybrids do this, or this is just a unique thing that the CX-90 does, but it just does that, and I just find that really fascinating. Of course, I know I'm supposed to care about gas mileage and other, you know, EV, you know, MPG and stuff like that, but this is a cool little thing, and this is what makes this car kind of unique and kind of cool, you know. Of course, it accelerates good. I'm not gonna do a pull or anything like that right now because it's raining right now, so pulls are like a no-go in this neighborhood. And just overall everything else, it just feels very, very smooth. On a road trip, honestly, you would not really complain either or of one of the SUVs. Of course, the CX-90 is brand new, so you're not going to really find any of them used. And if you find any of them used, probably maybe like the most 1,000 miles or something like that. That's just, you know, they just came out recently, so you're not going to really find any used CX-90s. And even then, they're going to probably still be above $40,000-$50,000 easily. This one price is at $54,000, so it's just a little bit, it's a tick under 55 grand. But they can still go up relatively pretty high. I've seen some go above $61,000, and that's for the fully loaded Turbo S model. For the CX-9, of course, you're going to find them way cheaper, starting around between 25 to 30. Of course, the 22s and the 23s, you're going to find them above $35,000-$40,000 for a nice fully loaded one, but they come with a lot of features, and they come with Bose sound system. This one also does come with Bose, and this one is priced at exactly $53,000. If you still want a brand new CX-9, you possibly still can, and you probably can get a better deal on a CX-9 if you're not looking for something more expensive. However, if you want a more premium feeling to this, to, you know, your three-row SUV, the CX-9 is 1000% the way to go. And if you want more efficiency too, this one's definitely the way to go, as this one is significantly more efficient than the CX-9.
The CX-9 is going to be missed, that's for sure, but the CX-90 is a very nice welcoming. And to be really honest with you, it is definitely a change that needed to happen for Mazda. It's going to be missed, but the CX-90 is definitely a newcomer that is going to definitely shift the automotive industry quite a bit. Until next time.